whispers in the deep dark night.
Welcome to the AI Riff, where we cut through the noise and break down the top AI stories of the week with real talk and real relevance. No hype, no fluff, just a vendor-agnostic take on what's actually shaping your world today. Whether you're in tech, lending, or just trying to make sense of the headlines, we're here to separate the wheat from the chaff and the facts from the fiction. Now let's get this started with your hosts, Mario Diabenedetto, Rob Katz, and me, Kyle Myers. We hope you enjoy this episode of the AI Riff.
Episode Rob's Age.
Yes, sir.
60.
And you can say that again the next time we do a podcast.
Episode 60.
Say it every time.
Well, it's a good round number.
That's 60. That's 60 for anybody who's not paying attention.
Do we ever change our, we have episodes in years. Is this season 1 still?
Yeah, we're in there's only one season of the AI Riff.
Okay.
And the number just keeps getting higher because it makes it look like we work hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
3 years from now, people are going to come in and go, man, they do 300 episodes a year. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I hear, Mario, we got to switch up. We got to switch up today.
We do. I know nothing.
You know nothing?
What?
I know nothing. I'm Sergeant Schultz for this episode.
Okay.
All right. So this is if your company's AI tells a customer something false, who said it? The AI or your company? So the backstory here is in the last episode, we talked about the EU imposing all sorts of interesting restrictions and watermarking to identify when it's AI and stuff like that. This also is coming out of there. This is Germany. Germany sued Google and won. And the lawsuit has to do with the Gemini summary you now get at the top of a Google search page that summarizes the findings for you, included false information. And for decades, Google and all the search engines' position has been, we are just an indexer. We are not responsible for the content on the pages that we index. We are not liable for any false information or bad information. They tried to, so in one of these AI summaries at the top of a Google search, there was bad information. And so Germany sued, and Google's position is, hey, look, we're just indexing the data and showing it in a different format. And the courts there said, no, you generated new content and really said, show me the source documents that had the wrong information on it. And Google couldn't produce it because their AI summary engine, whether hallucinated, it did its stuff. It generated text that was wrong. And so Germany said, sorry, Google, you no longer can hide behind we're just an indexer. I am 100% supportive. I think this is absolutely the right move. And I wonder, and Google's going to appeal, and if they lose the appeal and so forth, is that summary at the top of the page going to go away soon? Because Google went from being an indexer to being a content generator. And they've never been a content generator before, right? So, you know, this experiment of them putting AI summary findings may be an experiment that didn't work out for them.
Well, and then what replaces it if they can't sustain that? They don't go back to regular Google search results, do they? Are we going backwards?
And for businesses, is that a step back or step forward, right? The problem the businesses are facing now, and man, I spoke at, I think it was the St. Louis Mortgage Bankers Conference 2 years ago about AI, and I had a slide that was a tombstone for the web, and my line was, the web is dead. Right, you guys are putting money into building out websites that has content and blog articles in the hopes that your SEO will pick that up and you'll end up ranking high on Google pages. That is dead because nobody sees your content anymore. Nobody clicks on your link anymore because the AI is summarizing and putting it out there without, and yeah, there's a little link to the side or whatever, but it's not, people can get to your answers now without going to your page. So if that goes away and it comes back to the old fashioned of delivering pages, is that a bad thing for businesses because they start to actually get their content out there in a way that drives business to their website?
So why doesn't this extend to ChatGPT? If ChatGPT tells me something wrong, can I sue them?
I think that's a good question. I think not, because they do their disclaimers everywhere.
So this
Maybe.
is a disclaimer thing. It's saying Gemini didn't disclose that it was possibly, you should check for hallucinations or whatever.
So
I don't know.
all Google has to do is put a disclaimer and say this could be wrong.
Well, let's think about this. So could ChatGPT get sued for wrong information? They can.
So
The fact that I'm looking at the screen right now and it says ChatGPT can make mistakes, period. Right? So does that get them off the hook?
probably not, right? How many times have social media companies been sued because social media somehow it conveyed something and some kid picked it up and committed suicide or whatever, right? Like they haven't gotten shut down because of it, but is it that different?
Yeah, and it's just like everyday life. If I make up stuff and I say something and it can
And you do.
and do something wrong, I'm in trouble. So why make up stuff every day? Yeah, I do.
Well, let's bring this. Let's take it a little bit away from can you sue OpenAI, and you're a mortgage banker, and you decide you want to save some money by you got a vendor that integrates with your LOS, Encompass, whatever, and you can expose now on your website after a borrower logs in that they can now chat with an AI agent and get, hey, when am I supposed to close? Or what am I supposed to do here? And the chat agent can go back and do stuff like that. If that chat agent says something wrong, it's not an employee. What if it was a phone call and the employee said something wrong? And
We do all the time.
it happens all the time. All right, so let's make this real. The borrower ends up not qualifying for the loan that they thought they were qualified for because somebody misunderstood their income and whatnot, and they're out $20,000 in earnest because they did a $20,000 deposit on the house. Now they can't buy the house, can't get the loan, they're out 20 grand. They sue you because your customer support agent, your loan officer said the wrong thing. Are you liable? I didn't get that. Oh, I'm sure he's talking to me. Sorry, turn that off. I don't know why.
You got a serious question.
Yeah. So what happened? I don't know the answer to that. Is the lender going to settle or they? What's that?
I think the lender's liable.
Yes, they are.
Anything that could impact a decision that comes through AI, if you haven't done full proof that it's bulletproof, then yes, you're liable.
So now what the AI lacks that the humans have is judgment. And where I think that's going is, so I am a processor. Borrower calls me up and asks me a question, and I don't know the answer to it. I'm probably going to say, hopefully, because I've trained them well, let me get the right answer for you and I'll call you back. Or let me escalate you to the underwriter and see if they can help us out. An AI agent is probably going to just give an answer because that's what they're trained to do.
Yeah, a well-trained one would theoretically say, I don't know, or whatever, right? Ideally. So deep down, what you're pointing to in a large part, and I'm curious to go back to the Google example, is evals, right? Evals are the thing that says this thing operates consistently the way I expect it. When I put X in, I get Y out, which is what I expect. And that you have enough evaluation criteria that you run against it, that whether you upgrade it or you change it or whatever happens over time, that you can always go back and prove, I tested that all of these different things and I was thorough. I made sure they all consistently came back with the correct answers, and I've been responsible about it. And if you can show that you were responsible, I don't know if this actually goes to what is the legal premise, right? Where what would a reasonable person do, right? If you can show that you were legitimately responsible and you did all the work to try to do it, and then something happened that was out of your control, you may not be liable, right? Because you did put the work in. But I think ultimately a lender is liable. It's their technology. I think the GSEs and everybody else have said, you don't get to blame the technology. You're the one.
If it's the vendor, if the vendor ultimately was the problem, you can try to sue the vendor for what they're suing you for. And that's it. It all goes back to whose AI was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is an interesting business decision then to sit there and say, well, rather than hiring humans, I'm going to replace them with this technology. So one of the costs of having the technology is doing the evals, which not easy, not cheap people. It's, that's a lot of.
No, no, and a governance program that is more than that because you actually need a whole governance program around it. I think in our lending industry, that's kind of you have people who are like, I'm not really going to care about that stuff. The AI is what it is, and I'm going to, be fast and dirty and just use it. And it works and it's cool and like it's doing this cool stuff, and I'm going to like use it. And then there's the people who are like, okay, I've got auditors that are going to show up at my door someday, and I've got to be prepared to answer their questions on how did I come to the conclusion that this thing was reliable and that it's consistent and that every time I made a change to something or they upgraded the model or whatever else, that it was still consistent. Like there's a lot that goes into that governance program. And so you can't really be in the middle. You're either saying I'm going to do all the work and make sure this thing's reliable and I'm going to do the best I can, or you're just saying, eh.
And let me add on to the complexity of what you just described, because it's terrifying to think about how much work it is to do it right, is where are you going to be introducing these AI tools? Is it just qualification? Is it talking about rates? Is it talking about calculating down payments? Is it getting into eligibility on government loans? Is it fair lending? Is it documentation? The more answers you're letting it, the more topics you're letting it give answers to, the more complex everything Mario you just described is. All the eval, all the compliance, all the double checking, all the documentation. It's like, it's because I've talked to some lenders who are like, well, we're just going to start here and see how it goes and then expand. Well, every time you're taking a step and expanding, you're exponentially adding to your workload.
You are, but you absolutely, like a governance program gets scoped to the risk associated, right? If you're doing something related to underwriting decision, that is like the nth degree of complexity for AI governance. You're going to have a compliance person who actually weighs in on the change at the beginning, in the middle, and before it gets put into production. But if you're doing something, I can't come up with something esoteric, but like if you're taking a document and deciding, how to rename it because you decided, oh, this bank statement came in and I want to give it a regimented, structured name. Your governance program doesn't have to be that deep, because if you get it wrong, your loan doesn't fall apart.
Aren't you just really forcing like insurance vendors to add coverages to you have your in policies for errors and omissions, you have all that kind of stuff. So you're really upping your insurance, just like a malpractice insurance for a surgeon. You have enough occurrences where your patient becomes, your former patient, then you end up with malpractice insurance and you can't get on with certain hospitals. You end up going away if you have too many. Well, the same thing with lenders. You get too many occurrences with errors and omissions and your processes, your governance is not good. So your processes are creating more problems. And if that could be from AI, it could be from people. I just think that it's just more of, okay, I know the rules. I got tools. I'm going to implement the tools. And I'm just going to overinsure myself a bit when it comes to AI. If AI causes a problem, it's the same thing as if I ran an employee through the pipeline and I said, hey, do this. And he didn't know how to do it. And he just did it. And he cost me money. It's like, you're either going to sell the loan, scratch and dent, or you're going to have insurance on something, for trying to get the thing fixed. I look at it from, now lending is a little bit different because you do have to sell the loan. You have to sell it. If you did the loan and it's out there, especially if you did it on your own line, you got to get it fixed quick because you don't want it sitting on your line and you got to find someone to buy it and they're going to buy it on, 80 cents on the dollar and you're going to pay the premium. But that's painful enough. Why does there need to be governance on, when there's a failure? Why does there need to be, not governance, sorry. Why does there be so much focus on AI? If the mistake is made, the mistake is made. It can be made by humans in the current process, or it can be made by AI. And you fix it. Once it's made, you fix it. I guess if you're dealing with high volumes at a breakneck speed, your AI could break fast enough that you puts you out of business.
But that's not
But
true. Take AI out of the equation. An auditor doesn't say, oh, you made a mistake, that's okay. They literally do the opposite. An auditor comes in and says, you made a mistake. I want to understand how that happened. I want to
right.
know what processes and controls you had in place to make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen, because that is not something that's supposed to happen. And you don't get to just say, oopsie, right? You have to say, oh, here's our procedures, here's our controls, here's how this thing, escaped them somehow. And you would have to do the same with AI. By the
But
way,
it still doesn't negate the fact that you got to buy the loan, you got to pay for the loan, you got to do all these other things. You got to come up with the funds to make it whole again. So you're getting both. You're getting the audit saying, well, what failed, and then now you're talking maybe a compliance like on I don't know, some regulatory law, not necessarily something that caused the loan to be bad, but realistically anything could be causing the loan to be bad. If your disclosures are out of timing, your loan is unsaleable. So, I mean, I guess I'm saying the same thing, but you're pointing to the specific.
So just so we're all clear, Kyle is promoting the idea that nobody needs AI governance. So that's cool.
No, I am not. I'm saying the opposite, but I'm saying it in a way that if you focus too much on one piece of your puzzle, AI, that it's not the only place you can fail. You have governance in all your different areas of your company now. You're just adding another slice inside there.
That's true.
AI is just another slice of governance because you have to have all the others. And if AI is embedded into all your channels that you have governance protocols and processes on right now, then yeah, okay, maybe it's a lot bigger. But if you're only using AI for the upfront kind of the sales cycle and they're using it for something to get more clients in the door, okay, you've got one channel.
So again, Kyle is saying that regression testing AI is the same as regression testing any of your other technology.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It is not. It is absolutely not. It is so much harder. It is so much harder because it is a non-deterministic system that you can't guarantee that one nuanced small change doesn't make the whole thing go haywire.
And if I can jump in,
it's not deterministic.
You don't know the source. It could be pulling from an outdated reg, right? It could be pulling from a comment in Reddit, right? The wild, wild west of what's out there, right? You don't know the source of where it's getting the information of how it's coming up with the answer.
But if you go down that rabbit hole, then now you're saying AI is not built for the mortgage industry because the regulations are so tight.
No, it's just there's responsible use.
Yeah. If you look at the AI that we built at Reverse Plus, it does not answer outside of we built a RAG system. We know exactly what documents are in there. It sources to the subparagraph where it's getting the answers from. And if it doesn't know, it comes back with, I do not have a place to get the answer. So
again, you wrap the guardrails and you have the prompts and you have the thing to make sure it's answering in its lane. It's not leaving its lane.
That's right.
So,
but if it makes a mistake, he's also liable. So he has to be super responsible to do everything possible, right? Because I think he doesn't want to get sued because his thing gave a wrong answer.
That's right.
Or an answer on something it shouldn't have. So I do want a little fun fact, Kyle, because you mentioned insurance. Whether you're a technology vendor or a lender, you ought to be checking your policies to see if they actually have AI mentioned in them. Because if they don't, you could be SOL on getting coverage if you do make a mistake. Because it's not.
That doesn't mean just the sun, by the way. SOL is not just the sun.
It is not. You can look it up, kids. And if it's not in there and you get sued, then your insurance wasn't worth what you paid for it. So
evidently. Well, it was worth for everything else, just not AI.
So I'm going to try to exit question us unless you guys have, something you were really dying to throw in here. So I find this to be incredibly counter to the way social media platforms were treated and have been treated, still treated, in that social media platforms got to say, I'm not responsible for what goes through on my platform. I'm just the platform. If somebody says something hateful, whatever, fill in the blank of all the things that could be wrong with what somebody could post or say or do or whatever, they've gotten off the hook. There's actually laws that basically exempt them from being responsible for the stuff that flows through because we're just the platform. And I'm betting that Google probably tried to say something similar. I'm just the pass through, right? Let me get that up. Is there any chance that this is a slippery slope? Let me say this as an either or. Do you think that Google's going to end up winning on appeal because they're going to be like, no, they're just doing math and like it's just calculations. Give them a break. Or is this a slippery slope that says, you know what? Just like Google's responsible for the regurgitation they did, the social media platforms are responsible for the fact that they took this stuff and they not only they let it come through, but they also let it get blown up and they let it get the light of day or whatever. Like, is there any chance?
I think it's a little bit different. I mean, what the Munich court position is Google built this, Google operates it, Google presented the answer, Google owns the answer. That's their
There's no other person contributing in like in social media, like a third party.
That's right. So the social media platforms of, hey, we don't control the content that's there, still holds true. Just like Google indexing, like there's no challenge for what happens below the summary where it's actually listing the pages. Like there's pages, we index them, we represent what's there. We have algorithms that determine which ones rank and which ones, all that other stuff. Which, by the way, you start learning that they actually made their search engine worse so that you have to get to page 2 or 3 to get to your answer so that you see more ads when you go to page 2 and 3, right? So there's that whole sub-story too that they should get sued over. But I think there's enough difference here that it's this Google tool that took input and changed it and presented it as an answer. And social media platforms aren't doing that that we know.
So slippery slope. Can you restate that question? Because we gotta.
Yeah, is the fact that the German court found Google liable here a slippery slope for courts, and let's just say a German court, that they could say a social media company is just as liable for letting something hateful or whatever, fill in the blank, something that's
So I know our founding laws are a little different with freedom of speech, but does AI have freedom of speech?
It's a good question.
Because at some point you have to say it came up with it based on its ability to reason through the information and it came up with an answer. Well, isn't that what the human mind does too? We go through all these different experiences in life and we it makes our opinions or things, and we say something out in public, and we have the freedom to do that in the United States. Now this is EU, this is Germany, so I don't know everything about. I don't think they have the same freedom rights to speak.
Well, they definitely do have a different way of looking at things. Listen, just to pick on one platform, Grok has said some pretty interesting things, right, over its life. And I imagine that if you went into ChatGPT, people have seen it say some pretty interesting things over the course of its life. So is that freedom of speech? I don't know, but it's able to say basically anything, right?
And technically, if you want to train and put guardrails on things and say find the most racist things in the world and make the responses as racist as you possibly can, technically AI would be responding in a racist way. So
I think a lot of this goes back to episode 53, where we talked about open models, right? Where it's like when you get control over what's actually getting done with your model, that's exactly why it's another reason why you would want to do that, right? Because you get to have some control over avoiding some of these other things that might happen. By the way, super interesting thing that came across, and maybe we'll get into it. The difference between open source models and open weight models is really interesting. But not for this.
I thought they were synonymous.
They are not. They are not. Not for this talk.
Sounds like a future pod.
Or an Inside the AI Riff.
So
here's my wrap.
Go ahead, wrap it up, Rob. Send us home, Rob.
Yeah, my question for you mortgage bankers out there, any business. When your company's AI starts talking directly to your borrowers or your customers, Are you willing to legally stand behind every word it says? And if your answer is no, don't turn it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say I agree with you, Rob. You can't afford, because it could very quickly, think of how many customers it could talk to in a short period of time. And if it was wrong on all of them and only 10% of them came at you, how bad would that be?
Yeah.
Reputationally, reputational risk, and monetary risk. So
You might end up being Klarna.
I knew you would go there. That was the drinking word. No, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know what the drinking word is. But I think we've beaten that one up, and we even got a Klarna hit in there. So I'm Kyle Myers.
I'm Rob Katz.
And I'm still Mario Di Benedetto.
And this has been the AI Riff.